Do have a serious guest and a serious topic on today. We have Neil Gehlawat from Cohn, Stiles. Neil, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You guys are handling an important case here I want to get to, but first I want to, I don't think I've had you on the program.
Yeah, I think this is my first time.
Okay, well, you're doing great. Introduce yourself. Tell us something about you, because you're a local product, and I know that the Cohn Stiles marketing program is all about how you guys are local, and you know the community, and you're not outsiders. So, introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Neil Gehlawat. I'm an associate at the firm. I grew up here in Bakersfield, went to Stockdale High School, graduated from there in 2005, and then I went away to school for 7 years. I was at Berkeley for about 4 years, and then I went to law school at the University of Texas in Austin. And shortly thereafter, I came back to the Promised Land and joined the firm, and I've been hitting the ground running ever since then. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to work on a lot of important cases, both with Matt and David and some of the other lawyers at the firm.
Yeah, well, you joined a good group. So tell us about this case that's been all over the news. It's a terrible incident at a group home, right? And I'm not even sure where Mountain View Ranch Residential Care, for those of us who aren't so familiar with it, take it from the beginning. What happened out there?
Sure. We represent the family of a gentleman named Joseph Adam Lynch. He went by Adam. At the time of his death, Adam was 27 years old. He was a developmentally disabled young man who was born with what's called Fragile X syndrome. Fragile X syndrome is a genetic disease that he was born with that impairs some of your learning abilities and also some of your cognitive abilities. And people who have Fragile X syndrome often tend to exhibit some sort of aggressive behavior that can be unpredictable at times. In any event, Adam was housed at a residential care facility, which he called Mountain View Ranch Residential Care out in Lamont. And he was there for some time. And on this particular date, it was July 9th.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. So he's living there.
He is
under
living
their
there,
care.
yeah.
When you have Fragile X, do you need that type of care, or is that a choice that a family would make? Can these people be, live by themselves in society, or is it the condition such that they need that kind of 24/7 care?
Well, it's a collaborative decision between the family and the Kern Regional Center. And the Kern Regional Center provides services to a lot of developmentally disabled clients in town, and they decide where to place him. But absolutely, he needed 24-hour, around-the-clock care, and that's why he was placed in this residential care facility. I believe that he was there with 3 other individuals, and there was a staff of folks at this residential care facility that had the responsibility of taking care of him on a 24-hour basis and attending to all of his unique needs because of his developmental disability. So
what happened?
In any event, what happened on July 9th was Adam wanted a cigarette, and he went over to one of the staff members at the group home and he asked him for a cigarette. And evidently, the staff member did not give him a cigarette, and that made him upset. And he punches the staff member. And what follows then is a situation where multiple staff members throw Adam to the ground and eventually place him on his stomach in a prone position, and there are 3 or 4 people on top of him, including another client.
Is Adam resisting?
I think maybe there's about 2 minutes where you can show there's a little bit of resistance on his part where he's trying to let loose. There's not a whole lot he can do.
We're watching some video. If you're near a computer, you can watch this video on Bakersfield.com.
Right, and what the video shows is, initially he's propped up against a door, and eventually then he's thrown on his stomach, and these group members jump on top of him and they hold him down, and one of the group members actually takes his feet and push him up against his butt. And what happens over a course of 20 minutes is no one does any CPR, no one does any life-saving procedures. They continue to hold him down, even though for 15 minutes he's totally non-responsive. He resists initially, and then he obviously stops breathing, and yet they don't do anything for about 15 minutes, and he eventually dies. The sheriff's department eventually comes onto the scene, and they're called presumably to the scene, and they try to do CPR and some other life-saving procedures, but they're obviously unsuccessful in being able to resuscitate him. So that's sort of the gist of what happened.
Did he die at the scene, or did he die later?
He did die at the scene.
And
yes.
and what was the cause of death determined?
The cause of death, according to the Kern County coroner, was positional asphyxiation, and they've ruled it a homicide. So positional asphyxiation essentially means that because of the way that he was positioned on his stomach, he was not able to breathe anymore, and consequently he died.
Okay, so what went wrong here? Look, you've got the son of, you're representing the family.
That's right.
Right, so their son asks for a cigarette, punches, throws a punch, right?
Right.
I mean, that's clear.
And
you would expect the staff to try to, resist this guy, right?
Right. Well, there's no doubt about that.
You know what, we're gonna be up a break, but when we come back, I want you to tell me your view of what is their responsibility, how should they have responded, and what went wrong. What are you going to argue?
Sure.
There you go. When the guy's not responsive for 15 minutes, that's when it gets excessive in a lot of people's minds. But we'll talk about that when we get back from the break. It's First Look with Scott Cox. It's Bakersfield.com and News Talk 1180 KERN. And we're back. Michael Hopper's in the First Look News Desk. Nothing. We're back with Richard Beene. And I just found this out. San Francisco 49er fan, Neil Gehlawat. I figured coming out of Austin and that you didn't get any.
He went to Berkeley.
Yeah, but then he went to Austin. How do you leave Austin and come here? I've never. Man, what a town. What a place to hang out.
Yeah, the common thread is the heat. So
it's the humidity that gets you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're back.
Yes, Neil Gehlawat of Cohn and Stiles. We're talking about the death of 27-year-old Joseph Adam Lynch on July 9th at a group residential facility out in Lamont. There was an altercation. He was restrained, and he died. The coroner has ruled it a homicide, and Cohn Stiles is representing the family in this case against the group home. And for those of you who are near a computer, if you want to watch some of this video, it's kind of graphic. You can do so on Bakersfield.com. Neil, tell us about what are the expectations? I mean, clearly, Lynch threw the first blow. He suffers. The reason he's there, he suffers from something called Fragile X syndrome. Two members of the staff did wrestle him down. Well, I mean, what are the expectations and when you have a licensed facility like that, what are the procedures they should follow? And are these staff members trained in how to deal with something like that? Because they have to be, because those are the people they care for.
Well, to the last point, they should be trained. I don't know if they were trained. If they were trained properly, they obviously didn't follow their training. In this case, the issue is you've got a developmentally disabled man who, like you said, had Fragile X syndrome. And one of the things that I said at the beginning of the show was that people who have Fragile X syndrome often exhibit aggressive behavior. And the group home was well aware of that, or should have been made well aware of that. And as a result, they should have known how to deal with a situation like this without it resulting in his death. Now, what were they supposed to do? Well, they were supposed to be trained. There's a lot of nationally recognized trainings that people from the group home or their like are supposed to be trained in. For example, there's a training called PROACT. PROACT stands for professional assault crisis training, where they train people on how to deal with situations like this. And the one universal thing that all of these trainings say is that physical restraint should be a last resort option. And
Well, what does that mean? I mean, are you gonna like talk them down, or I mean, literally, or what? And what would you?
Well,
how should these guys have responded?
Well, you'll see first that in the video, when he's initially thrown to the ground, he's propped up against a door, and he's not on his stomach. And sometimes these situations call for staff to have to use physical restraint, but then it becomes a matter of, well, what kind of physical restraint do you use? And the big no-no, especially when you've got someone that's of Adam's size,
He's a
pretty
big boy,
big kid, you never put these people on their stomach, and you do not restrain them in a prone position, face down, for an extended period of time without checking to see, are they breathing? Are they still conscious? They could have, for example, kept him in the position that he's in right now, as you see in the video.
He's propped up against the door.
He's
there,
propped up
right.
against the door. They could have had him on his back.
Excuse me. Let's pause here. I know that the listeners can't see this, but are there signs he's resisting then, or is he just? I can't tell.
There don't appear to be at this point. I think he appears to be conscious, and I say that only because in the ensuing minutes, he's thrown to the ground, and I think there's some movement on his part. But the bottom line is they could have kept him in this position. They could have put him on his back and held his hands and his legs down. The one thing that they should not have done is exactly what they did, and that's putting him on his stomach and holding him down for an extended period of time. And I think what's really bad about it is after about 2 minutes, he's non-responsive. He's not moving at all. And yet they continue to stand on top of him and hold him down for another 15 minutes and never perform any life-saving procedures or even attempt to do so. It's only when the sheriff's department shows up that the sheriff's deputies, for the first time, try to resuscitate this guy. And these people have no part in it.
Now, and you said that that the two staff members have asked for the aid of another group home member to help them?
I don't know if
restrain
they
this guy?
asked for the aid of the other group home member, but there is another group home member who's involved in restraining him. I don't know if you can see him right there. He's got a blue shirt on. I think he's more visible once Adam is down on his stomach. You see him there with the red shorts.
Right.
For some period of time, he is one of the people, along with the staff members.
Okay, and what's wrong with that?
Well, you can't. That's a big problem. You cannot let other clients get involved in restraining someone. That should be, if at all, if you have to even restrain someone, that's exclusively the responsibility of the staff, because allegedly the staff is the one who's trained to deal with these situations. Certainly, other clients at these homes are not trained to deal with situations like this. So they should not be involved in this whatsoever. They should be taken far away from what's going on, and it should only be the staff members who, if they had adequate training, would be the ones responsible for dealing with a situation like this.
I'm wondering what kind of case you would have here in a legal sense without that video. Do all group homes have cameras inside?
I don't know. We're very fortunate to have surveillance video in this case, and I think there's been a lot of attention and time focused on what the video shows in this case, and it's horrific, and it's tragic, and it's very troubling, I think, for a lot of people. But I think what we need to do is take a step back and think about it this way. What if we did not have the video in this case? I mean, just think about what could be different if we didn't have the video. If we didn't have the video...
There could be a whole different narrative about
well, you
what
have
happened.
a developmentally disabled man who's killed. Who would tell Adam's story? Who would say that Adam was on his stomach for 15 minutes without responding? Who would say that the staff members never tried to resuscitate him or conduct any life-saving procedures? We wouldn't know any of that. And so I think what this case highlights, sort of on a macro level, is that the importance of technology to obtaining justice in a lot of cases like this. Because now we have the video, and the video, is the best evidence in the case. I mean, we can all watch it. We can all agree that even though Adam threw the first punch, that he is non-responsive for 15 minutes on his stomach, and no one's doing a thing to try and save his life.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, anybody who doesn't have a sense of how much time that is, just lay down in your living room floor for 15 minutes.
Well, it's a quarter in an NFL football game.
Yeah, it's forever.
Yeah.
I mean, and in a situation like that, it's an indescribably long period of time.
Right.
We're going to come up against a break. Can you stick around?
Sure.
Okay, because when we come back, I want to talk about, can we draw any broad conclusions about how we license these group homes, who oversees them? I don't know that. I'm sure you do. In this case, who owns this group? Because I know there's a lot of group homes throughout any community. Sometimes they're for senior living or assisted living or end of life or these kind of things. And what are people's choices? And again, kind of what are the expectations on the training?
Yeah, I wonder how extensive is it? Just like a couple of day course that you take?
Are these minimum wage people they hire? I don't know.
I'm sure it's not.
It raises lots of questions about.
And I'll say this: Ed, no matter ask any cop, all your training goes right out the window when somebody punches you in the face. But that's just the very beginning of this. What happened after is the part. Well, we'll talk about all this when we get back. Wow.
We'll hear from Hop too. I'm excited.
What is it? We're in America. How are we not? We just watched the video of the last moments of a person's life. That is. That's messed up. You know what I mean? Doesn't that weird you out a little bit? Well, that's the last thing this person ever did in this world was that little bit of video. Yeah. Once upon a time that was real, but now it's just kind of accepted that, oh, yeah, that guy died. Wow. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. It's First Look with Scott Cox. It's Bakersfield.com and News Talk 1180 KERN. Richard Beene is here. By the way, you know who's not coming today? Tracy Walker was coming down here to confront you, but she said no, he's got an attorney there. Scared her away.
Confronting me or Neil?
You. Confronting you.
Over what?
About your making fun of her fine products.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry?
I just want to know if I could ask something real quick as far as the case goes with this young man. I wanted to know really quickly. And it's a two-part question. What are you going into court to attempting to prove? That the regulations that were set in place were either ignored or violated, or are you looking to set new regulations or look for recommendations for new regulations in the group home? And the second thing is, and I don't mean to be crass about this, but obviously one of the questions that I'm sure a lot of people are asking is, a young man is dead. The family is looking for compensation. What exactly are you asking for? What is the dollar amount that you put on a young man's life in this?
Well, to the first question, there's really three sort of theories of liability in this case. The first is basically battery, that these staff members battered Adam and were responsible for his death. The other two theories are basically ones where the group home and the Kern Regional Center were negligent because in the group home's case, they didn't do enough to ensure that their staff members were adequately trained to deal with situations like this. And had they been trained appropriately, this kind of situation could have been avoided altogether.
Training that's set up through California regulations, or training that's is there a law already in effect or regulations already in effect that they didn't follow?
Well, there is what's called the Lanterman Act. The Lanterman Act is a statute that's in place that governs regional centers. And what it says is that the regional center has a number of responsibilities. The regional center has to make sure that the staff members at these residential care facilities have appropriate training. They got to make sure that Adam's unique needs are met by the residential care facility. So, in essence, the regional center, their responsibility is to make sure these folks are trained. The group home's responsibility is to conduct the training, and there's lots of nationally recognized trainings that are done in these kinds of arenas. The one I mentioned before, it's called PROACT, about how to deal with individuals who sometimes exhibit aggressive behavior. See, what's really difficult about this case is the fact that this isn't just a fight. If this was a fight on the street and one guy threw a punch and 30 minutes later he's dead because a group of other guys knocked him to the ground, I think that the district attorney and a lot of people would have a lot of trouble with that. But here, it's even worse because the guy who had the aggressive behavior to begin with has a developmental disability, and that's part of his developmental disability, and the group home and the regional center knew about that. And then the people that are responsible for killing him are the same people who are responsible for taking care of him, providing 24-hour around-the-clock care to this guy. To your second question about how much we're seeking, we're not asking for a specific dollar amount. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's up to a jury to decide. If we go to trial, we put on the evidence, we show them the video, we say X, Y, and Z, this was supposed to happen, this didn't happen, and that's what resulted in Adam's death. It's for a jury to decide what's fair and what's reasonable in terms of, how much
Neil,
to award
is
these
that,
people.
I want to follow up on Hop's question. Is that normal in these civil cases? Again, there's two different things going on. If this thing was ruled a homicide, but there's been no charges filed against individuals, you guys are dealing with the civil end of this. Is it normal to go in and not seek a dollar amount in California, or to Hop's question, or do you always leave it up to a jury to decide what price of human life? I mean, why wouldn't you go and say, we want 10 million or we want 1 million?
Right. And those are tactical decisions that you have to make closer to trial. It's uncommon in civil cases for an attorney representing a family, especially over a death, to not ask for any monetary compensation. But what that number is, that's ultimately a jury has to decide that amount. We can ask in closing arguments for a certain amount of money, but at the end of the day, it's up to a jury to decide, looking at all the facts, and not just all the facts of the case, but also about Adam's relationship with his family, because they're the ones who really suffered the loss. How important is this relationship between Adam and his mother? The greatest bond that we have in society today between a mother and a son, how strong is that? What's that worth? Adam not being there anymore, what does that mean as far as loss?
Isn't this case different? And you help me here because I'm just a TV lawyer. But if this guy were the CEO of General Motors, one of your arguments might be that she made X amount a year and probably had another 20 years of work, so therefore the family is out X. This guy, Adam Lynch, was developmentally disabled. You can't make that argument in terms of earning power and using some formula. You have to make the argument about on a more of emotional level. Is that right?
I think that's right. He certainly doesn't have the earning power of a CEO at a big company. But at the same time, I don't think that the group home or the regional center or any of the defendants in this case are entitled to a discount because Adam was developmentally disabled. I think that as a society, we care deeply for developmentally disabled people, and that's why we put them in the care of these group homes who are supposed to make sure things like this never happen. And when there is the kind of behavior that you see in this video, it's really tragic. It's really troubling. And remember, these lawsuits often have two purposes, okay? On the one hand, it's about seeking compensation for the family for the losses. But on the other hand, it's also about creating change and making sure something like this never happens again. And that's a big deal to the family. The family does not want anyone else or any other family to have to go through what they went through. And their hope is that by filing this lawsuit, it'll force group homes and regional centers to pay more attention to how they train these people, to ensure that these people are properly trained so that things like this don't happen again.
Yeah.
Is it reasonable to assume that his developmental disability is going to be something that the other lawyers are going to try? They're going to, we needed to restrain him because of that disability, and that's why he was a danger to himself and others. Are they going to try to use that to, try to take away some of the blame for the excessive use of force, I would say?
Well, they might try and argue that, but the reality is because they knew about his disability, that's more the reason why they should have known how to cope with it and how to deal with it. I mean, this is a guy who has exhibited forms of aggressive behavior, and they should have known how to properly deal with it.
Yeah.
We're talking to Neil Gehlawat of Cohn, Stiles about the death of Joseph Adam Lynch on July 9th at a Lamont Group home for the developmentally disabled. We have one more segment. I hope you'll stick around because I want to talk about the two defendants in this case, the Kern Regional Center, which I couldn't tell you who they are or who licensed them or, who appoints them, and then the group home itself. So can you stick around?
Sure.
Okay, great.
We'll be right back with Mr. Gehlawat. Mr. Beene, well, it's First Look with Scott Cox. It's Bakersfield.com and News Talk 1180 KERN. Man, this I think what we're going to be learning a lot about in the near future, and I'm assuming, but the public doesn't need to know, or in a lot of cases want to know. But if you're a juror, I think a lot of this is going to come down to how well trained these people are and what they go through, and then because if you know how well trained they are, you'd know how much of a breach of that training occurred on the day. But that's what these cases are. Here's Richard Beene.
Yeah, we've been talking, spent the hour, and thank you, Neil, for coming over with Neil Gehlawat.
I think they bill us for that hour, don't they?
Cohn, Stiles. No, we're not.
That's not a
we're
bill.
billing
Not
him.
our practice.
Oh, well, thank you then.
Yeah.
So.
Talking about the death of 27-year-old Joseph Adam Lynch in July at a group home for the developmentally disabled in Lamont. You keep mentioning Kern Regional Center. That and the group home, you have two different defendants. What is the Kern Regional Center, and who established it to oversee group homes?
Well, the Kern Regional Center is a nonprofit that is authorized through the state of California to provide services to developmentally disabled clients. And there are various regional centers across the state, and in Kern County we have the Kern Regional Center. The Kern Regional Center is responsible for placing people like Adam into particular residential care facilities. And the Regional Center's responsibility is to secure care for Adam. It's not their responsibility to do the hands-on training for the staff members at these group homes, but it is their responsibility to secure care for Adam, to make sure that he's in a home that is well equipped to deal with his unique needs. And they also have additional responsibilities. They have to go out and do these periodic visits to the home and monitor and make sure that these people are adequately trained, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So they are responsible for the training.
They're not responsible for doing the actual training, but they are responsible for making sure that these people were trained. It's like, were these people trained appropriately? Yes, check the box. Mm-hmm. Regional centers got to do that. The group home is the one who's responsible for doing the actual training. This is how you do it. You never restrain people this way, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, who appoints? Is there a board for the Kern Regional Center? Who appoints? Are they appointed positions, or are they?
No, I don't think they're an appointed position. They do have a board of directors, but they have a number of service coordinators that are assigned to families of developmentally disabled clients. And they facilitate the process by which these clients are then placed into these residential care facilities.
Okay, I don't want to belabor the point, but I have a 27-year-old developmentally disabled son, and I want him placed. The Kern Regional Center would be my first stop, and then they would find a place that is licensed and meets their standards.
That's right.
So therefore, they are liable in your eyes because somebody dropped the ball there because he ended up in a home that
was not equipped to deal with his unique needs.
That's part of your allegations, right?
Right. That is part of our allegation.
Plus, you've got it on video, which we've been watching this video, plus another member of the home, another resident of the home actually helped subdue him, which is a no-no, right?
And that, that certainly bears responsibility on the group home, obviously, because they should not have, had another client involved. But it also begs the question, did they do training on this? Did they do training to make sure that staff members were aware of the fact that other clients should not be involved in situations like this? I think we can all agree sort of intuitively that that doesn't make sense, that you would allow another client to be involved in an altercation like this. But there probably has to be some sort of training on this issue as well. If there's an altercation like this and another client gets involved, what do you do in a situation like that? How do you take them away from the situation? And our belief is that these people were not well trained to deal with a situation
It's
like this.
interesting, Scott and Hop, as we talk about cases like this, it's like peeling the onion because, all the different agencies that oversee all of these group homes. I mean, you have group homes for parolees, you have group homes for assisted living, which then you get into
for people with substance abuse.
Yeah,
And,
is the regional center just deal with developmentally disabled?
Yes, the regional center just deals with developmentally disabled clients. But you bring up a good point, which is interesting. And just by way of analogy, just imagine if this was a elder home and you had a client who was at this elder home who suffered from dementia. And often elderly people who suffer from dementia tend to often exhibit aggressive behavior. Imagine if this happened in an elderly home like that, where that client started to show aggressive behavior and something like this happened, and that elderly person was killed. Just imagine the outrage. I mean, you cannot be in a situation where you throw this guy down on his stomach, hold him down for an extended period of time, and do nothing to try and save his life.
And he was also morbidly obese. At least he looked. So that makes putting somebody down on their stomach even worse.
That's
right?
absolutely right. I mean, and I think that's, you talk to people in the industry and they say, especially when you're dealing with someone who's overweight, it's a big time no-no. You never put them on their stomach. And even if you did, never for more than like 30 seconds. And you should be checking to make sure that they're breathing.
Yeah, that's the part I can't figure out. Where were the EMTs? If a person in your facility loses consciousness, is unresponsive, it seems at some point you'd get off them and you get an ambulance in there. Was there ever any attempt made to save this kid's life? I mean...
Well, all we know from the facts is that there was a 911 call made, and this is based on media reports. When this was first reported, the media said that a 911 call was made about a vandalism attempt. I don't know what that's about. I haven't seen anything to suggest that there was any kind of vandalism here. We're in the process of obtaining the 911 call to see what was actually said, but I think what very clearly happened was this wasn't a vandalism attempt. This was a situation where a client died.
No, I was just, we've got the roadmap now on how to do it exactly wrong. I was just thinking if everything was done right, this guy would have been subdued, I guess, physically, if that's what it took, and then immediately...
But they should have had people at the staff who should have been able to perform CPR.
There was this guy 15 minutes unresponsive, and during 15 minutes, no medical aid was rendered of any kind. I'm not on the jury, and now after today, I can't be.
Right. Well, Neil Gehlawat, thanks for spending an hour with us here on First Look with Scott Cox. We'll be catching up with you. There's always a chance, I suppose, that this thing will be settled before it gets to trial. I mean, that's part of the things you play. And what do you expect, or are you in touch with the DA's office at all about any criminal charges out of this?
Well, the Sheriff's Department, like you mentioned earlier, has classified this as a homicide, and I hope that the District Attorney's Office, and I'm confident that they will, take a very serious look at what happened and consider pursuing charges against these people, because I don't think there's anything more clear than the video that shows that these guys, man, they restrained him and they threw him down on the ground and they held him down there until he died.
Do you know that the two staff members who were involved, are they still working at the group home?
I'm not sure. I know that when we filed the lawsuit, we had some trouble serving them at the group home. That might suggest that they're not working there anymore, but I can't say for sure.
Okay. Very
Wow.
good.
Well, keep us up to date and tell Matt he's welcome anytime to defend his hair.
Yeah, Matt Clark and
Will
his
do.
hair.
It's fantastic, and I speak as a man with none of it. It's very intimidating head of hair, I'll say that. Oh, man. Well, I hope the family gets some measure of solace out of all of this at the end of the day. We'll have to see what happens. Join us tomorrow. Lois Henry will join us. Excellent. We'll have the latest on Sherman Gate. I think that might die out today. We'll see how that works out. You guys have a great day. What's left of it. Stay tuned for those Money Wise guys. First Look with Scott Cox. We're out of here.